Welcome back to the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, lifelong helper, nonprofit founder, and your host. I've been interviewing the helpers for a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to now be sharing these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Today, our guest is Emily Steckler, co-founder of the nonprofit Bisous for Leo. Join us for a heartwarming conversation about two girlfriends' search for a cure for INAD and for Leo. Trust me, this is a conversation you're not going to want to miss. We are so excited today to have Emily Steckler from Bisous for Leo and learn a little bit about their incredible work and her nonprofit. So welcome, Emily. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are so excited. So before we even start, tell me a little bit about what Bisous for Leo does.
So Bisous for Leo is an ancillary arm of the INAD Cure Foundation, which is the only United States-based foundation set up to try to treat and cure a rare disease called infantile neuroaxonal dystrophy.
And what does that disease do?
So in layman's terms, it's a cross between Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and Lewy body dementia. So the children who have INAD share a gene mutation with some forms of Parkinson's and have the same pathogenesis as those adults who have Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia.
Unbelievable. And having a family member that has Parkinson's and having a family member that has Alzheimer's, I cannot even imagine the combination and combining that in a child. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. How rare is INAD?
It's extremely rare. It's an ultra rare disease. There are probably between 150 to 200 children worldwide who are currently affected. But because of the genetic links, the hope is that by treating the children who are affected, we could in turn help treatment and cure options for those who have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Lewy body dementia.
And I think one of the frustrating things is when you are dealing with a rare disease, I mean, research dollars and getting research funded is so difficult. People always want to throw the money at the big guys, but everything is connected.
Yeah.
And I remember interviewing the head, Myra, from BCRF, from Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and Myra telling me, we end up unlocking so many cancers that aren't breast cancer in our research. It's probably the same thing that you're hoping with INAD, that people are going to connect the dots between the research from Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and then your research.
That's exactly the hope.
And
we do have certain doctors who have made the connection, who are trying to not only help the children, but help the adults. Dr. Kotzbauer out of WashU is one of them. Hugo Bellin is another one who's currently has made the connection, and they are trying to move all of the aforementioned diseases forward.
That's fantastic. So tell me how you got involved with this, and tell me about the name and who Leo is. I think that those answers are going to probably all come together, but.
Yes. So Leo is the son of my best friend, Deborah. Deborah and I went to high school and college together. When we were graduating high school, we were the close kind of friends. We were like, where are we going to go to college now? So we decided together that we would go from New York to Wisconsin. And then we both found ourselves back in the city for grad school. And we've just gone through life together. And when she was in grad school, she ended up winning this unbelievable internship for an interior designer in Paris, which led to her finding love at this firm and marrying this unbelievable French man named Antoine. And together they had Leo. And Leo developed normally for about 2 years. And after that, he started showing extreme signs of regression, and everything that he had acquired, all the skills he had learned from walking to talking to feeding himself, cruising, literally everything began to deteriorate. So eventually they turned to a geneticist who was able to diagnose him with this ultra rare disease called INAD. And when he was diagnosed and we sat there doing the research to figure out what it actually meant, because admittedly, no one had ever heard of this disease who was in our lives currently. As soon as we understood the genetic implications and the connection to the adults, there are 50 million adults worldwide who are affected by Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia. So as soon as that genetic link was made, we realized we had to take action. And actually in 2007, my grandmother had passed away of Lewy body dementia. And it was horrible watching her deteriorate. And to think that children would suffer the way that I saw her suffering, it's inconceivable. So we founded Bisous for Leo. And
what year was that?
Oh, goodness. We are 3 years in currently.
Okay. And how old is Leo now?
He's 5.
Oh,
yeah, he's so sweet. And it just breaks my heart that he's suffering, that there are other children suffering, that there are adults suffering. And because the mutated gene has already been identified, as you said, it's really a funding issue because we can only
time.
Right. Time and money. That's exactly right. We are racing the clock because the children who have been diagnosed, once the symptoms start to show, then they progress more rapidly. And the expected lifespan of these children typically ranges between 5 and 10 years of age. So it's a very finite period that we're dealing with.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. I know that no one ever wakes up, or when they're even a little child says, I'm going to grow up and be a nonprofit founder. Like, that's just not something that doesn't make the top 10 list. Life happens, things happen. Obviously, your best friend gets this news. She's family to you.
Yes.
But to take this on, to start a business that is racing the clock and and to derail your life, whatever you were doing before, I don't want to say that's not normal, but that's not normal. And there is no normal, by the way, for nonprofit founders. Something happens and you make a decision, I need to do this. So was it in that moment? Did Deborah say to you, will you help me? Did you say, I'm going to do this? Talk to me about how that just happened 3 years ago.
So I was actually in London, and I was in London with my family, and I had plans to then get on the train. Deborah called me the day before I was supposed to go, and she sounded unlike anything I had ever heard before. She was a different version of herself. She was so hysterical. And she basically said, you shouldn't come, and then called me back and she's like, you should come. She was out of her mind. And I said, look, I'm in London with my family. I can stay here. I can go home from here, or I can come to you. Whatever you ultimately decide is fine. So after a couple of hours of, digesting the information given, she called back and said, I would love for you to come. I think it would be great for you to come. But we are emotional and we're dealing with something that we'll talk through in person. And my daughter, Chloe, and I arrived the next day. We went to her apartment, and almost instinctually, I think Chloe picked up that something was off, but obviously I'm not speaking to a young child about any of these things.
Right.
But we walked into the apartment and she went right over and gave Leo a kiss. And I snapped a picture and I sent it to you so you'll get the reference point. We just sat there looking at them thinking, if only we could kiss this thing and make it better. And at the moment that the photo was taken, I didn't even know what the thing was, but I knew somehow kisses would need to be involved in helping the cause.
Wow. So how long after did you just say, let's start a nonprofit?
We started, that night we sat around the dinner table. No one was really eating. We started Googling what it was. We obviously stumbled upon the INAD Cure Foundation site and a couple of government things, but nothing really. It seems to me that it was an untapped thing to get behind, because again, as soon as you understand that these children are genetically linked to 50 million adults who are actively suffering currently from these neurodegenerative diseases, why is everyone not rallying around the children?
100%. Absolutely. So when you start a business, any business, and people don't always think of nonprofits as businesses, but they are a business that relies on the kindness of others. There's a lot of challenges and it's really hard work. And you have, I think, a double duty of hard work is educating people and getting the word out and explaining what this is and letting the world know about it. And then B, getting their support behind it, which is huge. So talk about some of the challenges that you've run into in the last 3 years. Like, what has been your biggest challenge?
Getting people to listen long enough to understand that this rare disease, by treating the rare disease, we could potentially help so many millions of people worldwide. I think people's attention spans are pretty short these days, but when you think back to when AIDS came onto the scene, there was an education factor. And you never really think of a pro when talking about a deadly disease, but the pro in that instance is that so many people were affected that they had to pay attention. And in this instance, there are only a couple hundred children who are affected. But once you are able to understand that the children are the purest form of this mutation, I mean, even the adults who have early onset have experienced more life. They have more environmental factors. They have sun exposure. They've consumed alcohol. They have caffeine. These children are pure. So getting people to understand that and me relaying it in as few words as possible is really a clutch thing.
Right. No, it's unbelievable. You want to shout from the rooftops, like, you need to hear this. You need to understand. When I'm hoping our conversation today is educating a lot of people. So I always say that, doing nonprofit work is like carrying a heavy bucket. We're not manufacturing a product. We're not selling anything. We are, in your case, you're carrying 150 little lives that you think about every night when you go to sleep, 150 little people, most especially Leo, who you love, in your heart. And when you are tired and you're doing your own laundry and you're dealing with your own life and you're dealing with just feeling like you didn't get enough done or it didn't happen, it can be overwhelming thinking about the responsibility that feels like, because that's how I think most of us feel, that we have to help. We're trying as fast as we can to help everybody. What fuels you to keep going when it's tough, when it's hard, when you're overwhelmed, when it's a lot?
We haven't achieved our goals yet. So until there is a treatment or a cure, I have no intention of stopping. These children are the missing puzzle piece of this larger neurodegenerative equation. And it is scientifically proven.
Right. That makes sense. And I know that sometimes we are in a privileged position to witness the best and worst of humanity. I kind of consider it's our paydays that we get to see people be generous and we get to see people be kind and do these wonderful things to help us along the way on our path. But there's moments, kind of, I would say, like moments of grace that we see that somehow we're a tiny cog in a bigger wheel, that we played a hand in something happen. Can you think of any moment like that makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're moving the needle, or we've done this?
There are so many, and I consider every victory, big or small, to be a victory. This podcast is an example of such. We were just introduced about a week ago, and here we are, and you're using your platform to help me get the word out, which is really half of the challenge. It's education and it's funding. So thank you for allowing me to do this.
You're welcome. One of my words that I really struggle with this word, and it's something that's used all the time in the nonprofit space, and it's good and bad. Knowing your impact is a good and bad thing. It's great that we're trying to achieve goals. It's great that we're trying to measure our success. But I hate the word, because you can't measure saving a life, extending a life, giving a better quality of life. There's no measurement for that impact. That's an immeasurable in my opinion. But if you think about what your impact has been in the last 3 years, I mean, what would you, and it could be a story. It doesn't have to be dollars or anything like that. To me, impact is whatever you measure it by. What do you think has been the biggest impact since you guys have started this?
I'd say the biggest impact has been the awareness raised and generated through the Bisous for Leo campaign. Because again, prior to the launch of it, there was very limited resources. I mean, thank goodness for INAG Cure that they had been working on this and we could help raise money to further their cause.
Right.
But, we've had so many wonderful celebrities who have lended their voice and their kisses to the cause. Everyone from Sebastian Stan and Gal Gadot and Eva Longoria and Laura Dern and Sissy Spacek, they've all taken a minute to post their kisses on social media, send their kisses in if they don't have a social media page. And every kiss posted furthers this awareness factor. And they obviously have much larger platforms than we do. But the fact that there is such grace that they would take a minute to take the time to lend their voice and to say, this cause is valid. And with this kiss, I support it and educate you. I mean, that's a huge impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to say, if I could have had one background, I thought about it, I might not have majored in communication and interior design as my subset. I would have done PR because PR, you having a background in PR, what a gift for what you're doing. I mean, you think about the way life works. I mean, yes. It's a gift to be able to have the skill and how to get the message out. And I think that is definitely a gift that you are bringing to Leo and this cause. It's an incredible gift.
Thank you.
It's an incredible gift. So I have to say, I probably know the answer to this, but I have to ask it anyways, because I think that nonprofit founders, we're kind of big dreamers. We're entrepreneurs and we're dreamers, and we have a vision of something when we start of what we want to accomplish. But I have to ask, if you could dream any dream for Bisous for Leo, what would it be?
I mean, obviously to eradicate the disease entirely, but I would love for a larger organization to want to work with us to help further the science, because again, there is such a proven link between Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia that if any of the larger foundations that are working on those causes said, yes, the children are important to the work that we are currently doing, it would be such an immense help because as you said, the funding is a huge issue. There's never going to be enough money to help move this along. Every dollar raised, we put back towards the medical advancements. And if a larger organization or foundation said, yes, we understand why these children are so vital, we are doing XYZ program and we would love for them to be a part, I mean, my heart would just explode. It would be so good.
It all starts with that intention. It all starts with putting it out there. So there it is. And that's why we have to ask these questions, because we're putting it out into the world, calling all foundations, calling all corporate partners, calling everyone who's listening, literally to think about that. Because I think about even, like I said earlier, BCRF. I mean, that was two girlfriends sitting at Myra and Evelyn Lauder sitting at the kitchen table, and Evelyn had breast cancer. And she said, Myra, you've run businesses and raised money. Can you help me? And two girlfriends sitting at the kitchen table. And this is very similar. And look at what they've done with breast cancer. And I don't see why two girlfriends here can't do the same thing. I mean, that's just how it started. And same thing with Susan G. Komen. I mean, Susan said to her sister, Nancy Brinker, at her deathbed, she said, Nancy, you can do this. You can find the cure. I know you can do this. And I think that it's those women's power, friendship, love, relationships that is the driving force in the universe. So I feel good about our call to action that this could be a good thing.
Well,
so
amen.
Amen. That's right. Do you have a motto or a phrase that you kind of live by, or a catchphrase that kind of keeps you going?
Well, I'd say the Bisous for Leo phrase is together we can kiss INAD goodbye. And I truly believe that if everyone would come together, this could be solved. I'd say half of the challenges of rare or ultra rare diseases is that people don't even know what it is. Oftentimes there's no diagnosis. It's just frustration. What are we dealing with? And here, not only have we identified what the disease is, but we have the exact mutation that needs to be fixed. So whether it's through gene editing or gene therapy, we can do this.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't help but think, we just watched this. We've all lived this with COVID.
Yes.
We've watched Operation Warp Speed. They said, let's figure this out. Let's come together and focus on this and look what we can accomplish. The human race just watched this happen. So it doesn't mean that it can't happen. It's completely feasible. I mean,
completely correct.
I think what to your reference with AIDS earlier, when that happened, we just thought, oh my gosh, like we didn't see something like this happen in front of our eyes. But we've just seen it with COVID. We have just watched a medical miracle happen. And now it's time for another one, right?
I'm very hopeful that these neurodegenerative diseases can be eradicated within our lifetime.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm involved with Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and I just, every time I walk in there, I just have such gratitude and grace for our medical community, and I see parents with sick children, and there's just nothing worse. There's just nothing worse than seeing a sick child. It's just that you just can't ever overcome all that goes with that. It's too much.
Decide you want to be a parent, I mean, that's a huge thing to take on. You don't anticipate completely being derailed. No one plans to have a sick child. No one plans to have a child with a rare disease. I mean, the thing specifically with INAD again is that you can actually test for it. I didn't mention that when I went to visit Deborah from London, she was pregnant with her second child. So they raced through genetic tests while Ava, who thankfully is not impacted by INAD, was in utero. And they were very fortunate that she wasn't affected. But it's incredibly frustrating that there is a test available that's not included in the regular pregnancy panels, that hopefully one day through this mission, we will have it included.
Wow. That's incredible. I didn't know there was a test either. Obviously I had heard of INAD, but I did not know that would be a huge thing to overcome. That in itself would be incredible.
Yeah.
So many things happen on these journeys when we kind of change gears with our lives and switch over to serving others. It's a huge shift. There's so much growth and so many lessons that come from the path that we go on this mission to try to help people. What life lessons have you kind of learned on this journey in the last 3 years?
Oh, wow. I mean, I've learned so much, but really not to take health for granted. I'd say that's the biggest thing. I'm guilty of probably having taken it for granted in the past. And now every day that I wake up and I'm healthy and my family's healthy and my children are healthy, it's unbelievable. It's no longer just a small thing that I, take in stride. I'm very grateful for that.
Absolutely. Health is wealth, right? Health is wealth.
Exactly.
That's what I've always told my kids. Health is wealth. They're like, wait, what? I'm like, no, it is. Now,
it is.
Now that they're old enough, they understand. Now that they're in their 20s, they understand. But it is. Health is wealth. If you are healthy, you've won the lottery, right? Like you're there. So how do you think you've changed since doing this work? Do you think that you're the same? Do you think that things are different since you've started this?
I mean, I have more perspective, I feel, on how short and tragic and beautiful life can be. I mean, all of the above. This is obviously a horrific thing that any family would have to face, but I have found such beauty in humanity. And I've been so comforted that, I receive incoming phone calls from friends from high school who I haven't spoken to in 20 years, and college, because again, Deborah and I went to both together, who are just horrified that this is something that anyone would have to go through, let alone someone who they've known for a good chunk of their lives. So I have had my faith in humanity restored. And then on the flip side, I think this is a relatively easy ask to put forth on people. Please take a minute, post your kisses, help support this cause. Because frankly, we don't know, especially if you don't have any history of the larger neurodegenerative diseases impacting your family. Like Deborah has nothing. So there was nothing to suggest.
I was going to ask. So it's not like one partner had Alzheimer's, one had Parkinson's, one had
It's actually even crazier than that. INAD is autosomal recessive, meaning that both parents have to be carriers of the mutation to potentially pass it on to their children. And as carriers, with which both Deborah and Antoine were, because they're not impacted by the disease, basically dealing with the fruit flies that we used to deal with in science class, where there's a percentage where they'll have the disease, a percentage where they won't have the disease.
Right.
Or a percentage where they'll be carriers like their parents.
Wow. That's just crazy. And there's got to be screening for that too, I'm sure.
Yes.
I mean, oh my gosh, crazy. Wow. So you're talking about posting your kisses. Tell us how we can support you, support your work, donate, volunteer, get the word out. We're the troops. Give us our orders. Tell us what we can do to help Leo, to help cure this horrible disease.
Thank you. Well, social media, we're at Bisous for Leo across the board. And to donate, we are at bisousforleo.org. And thanks to the 501c3 status of the INAD Cure Foundation, we are fortunate to be able to provide tax letters for everyone who makes a donation.
It's fantastic. And is there any way that we can, with social media, what do you like people to do? What is it that you ask them to do?
The easiest thing is to post your kiss, literally go like that and tag Bisous for Leo. And if you're so inclined, tag some more friends or family and encourage them to do the same. Really, we want to get the message out. So that's the easiest way to do it.
Awesome. I love that. That is, it's easy to give a kiss. We can all give a kiss. That's the simplest way that we can make a difference. And at least one tiny step at minimum, if everyone can do that, that would be so fantastic. Emily, it has been such a joy talking to you. And I am so inspired by your friendship, your love for Leo, and the incredible work that you are doing to get the word out. And I hope that everyone listening is going to go and tell a friend about this and talk about it and share and help us get the word out so that we can save these kids, cure this disease, and just make the world a little happier.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Emily Steckler, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think Emily's comment about appreciating health was so inspiring and true. To learn more about modern day heroes like Emily, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared this with your friends and family. And of course, 5-star ratings are always appreciated at Apple Podcast. Remember that together, we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. See you next time.